Hey everybody, welcome to the Collecting the King show. This is episode 15, and this show is called Money Honey. And it's appropriately titled because we're going to be talking about price guides. Mostly Elvis price guides, of course, and specifically Presleyana, from maybe the very first Presleyana up to the most current Presleyana. And we'll also be talking about the future of Presleyana with author Jerry Osborne, who I was lucky enough to get an audio interview with. I would love to have had a Zoom type thing with him where you could see him, but unfortunately that didn't work out. So instead we have an audio interview with Jerry talking about Presleyana, how it started, how he got involved with it, and then the future of Presleyana. We've been getting a lot of inquiries about the next Presleyana because usually one comes out every 5 years, and it's been 5 years since the last one. So a lot of people are wondering, hey, is there going to be a new Presleyana? Price guides go back many, many years. Most antique malls have display racks of many different price guides. You may have seen that when you've gone to antique malls. There's like a rack of all kinds of price guides. But those are mostly for antiques. But there are also ones for collecting just about everything. Movie posters, comic books, baseball cards, and of course, records and memorabilia. Of course, there are many, many types of price guides. But I'm going to show you some of the price guides that I've had throughout the years, 30-something odd years of collecting, that I personally used, and ones that I think are notable and might bring back some memories to all of you. This here is a book called Touch of Gold. This book is by Neil Umfred. It's from 1990. It came out much later than the other Presleyanas, first Presleyana being 77. And this one's pretty good. There's some pictures in it and odds and ends of things inside that kind of talk about Elvis's records. I don't think this is really memorabilia. Now, I think this is mostly a record price guide, and it's a little different than Presleyana in its format. It's a good book, and it's a variation of the original Presleyana book, or a spin-off, shall we say. The next book we have here is Elvis Collectibles. Now, this one here is not really a record price guide. It's more of a memorabilia price guide. So it features many, many items from Elvis, which is pretty cool. I mean, there's stuff like sheet music's in here, and then it has, magazines are in here. Oh! And there goes my pages, which goes to show you how long I've had this book. The pages just fell out. But anyway, this book here has several things in it, mostly memorabilia with a lot of pictures. And I think contributors were Steve Templeton and Ted Young. Ted Young, I know, is a very well-known Elvis collector, and he's got probably one of the most impressive Elvis collections there is, along with some other people I know. But this book here is the third edition of the Elvis Collectibles book by Rosalind Craner. The first two, I had the first two, but they wore out pretty fast because I used them a lot. And as you can see from the pages falling out, this one's been used quite a bit, so it's pretty old. And that's one of the reasons why these paperback ones were kind of hard to deal with. The lifespan of these paperback books usually aren't that good because the spines don't hold the pages in, and if you use it quite a bit, then obviously you put a lot of wear to it, like this one here. This book is cool. This is called The Best of Elvis Collectibles, and this is actually a spin-off of that book. Not only is there black and white pictures, but there's also color pictures of all types of Elvis memorabilia, movie posters, and let's see if we can kind of, it's hard to do this, but kind of looking through here, there's let's see, those are the trading cards. There's some records. Then there's Las Vegas memorabilia, movie posters, magazines. This book's cool because it really kind of shows you the rarest of the memorabilia pieces that were featured in the other three editions of the book. Very, very cool looking book. Very nice cover. Probably long out of print. I don't even know if you can even find this anymore. But if you ever get a chance to get this book, it's one you want to get. another book here, and this one is by Lee Cotton. I remember getting this book and wanting to get it because it did have some information. It actually had items that were not in the other books. So, and there was enough of them to make me want to get this for reference. Here's a book with mostly, black and white, has a lot of pictures in it. And this book's different because it goes into a lot of detail about the items. Most of the other ones are just price guides. It's just pictures of different items. But here, as you can see, there's actually some text, like, oh, wrong hand, but I can't use it. On the other side, there's a bunch of text where I think Lee actually goes into detail and explains a lot of what the memorabilia is, maybe when it was made. Here's some color pictures inside the book, and you'll note that it has descriptions of each item as well as an estimated price. Now, I remember when I got this book, I wasn't too thrilled with the prices because I thought they were a little on the low side, especially for the 56 memorabilia. But now, of course, many, many years later, since this book came out, all that stuff is, a lot more valuable than it was. So that's a pretty cool book. One of my favorite Elvis record books, quite frankly, I don't know if it's a price guide because I can't read it, but here we go. This is the Elvis Presley Japanese book. This is a book that shows you all of the Japanese LP releases. Now, I remember getting this book. I think I got this book as far back as the 80s. I used to have 2 or 3 customers from Japan who would come to the show. And one day they came in and they said, they showed me the book. Now, they couldn't speak English, but they just kind of showed it to me and everything. And I started flipping through it. And I noticed how fantastic it was. It's like the Japanese, they know, when they do something, they do it all out. And here's an example of the pages. These are all Japanese records or LPs and 45s as well, and it shows pictures of them with and in some cases without the obi strip. And of course, if you know anything about the obi strip, they're very valuable. Here's another batch of pictures, and you can see the obi strip in the pictures there. And of course, the obi strips are different for different releases or reissues. The very first pressings would have a certain obi strip. Okay, here's an example of some of the Japanese albums. You might recognize The Girl Happy there. That's with the obi strip, and then there's Roustabout with an obi strip and Kissin' Cousins with an obi strip. But those strips there that go down the left side of the album, those are paper strips that would translate what was said on the album in English to Japanese. Of course, collectors always want to get the ones with the obi strips. So these are pretty rare, and the great thing about this book is you get to see all the variations of those strips. Here is another example of obi strips that went on reissues of these albums, although I think some of these might be the original 70s obi strips. But they would change mostly because of the releases to help you determine whether or not you had an original or a reissue. Anyway, really cool book, very hard to find, and if you can, just for fun, you may want to pick one up. The only problem is all of it's in Japanese, so you can't really read it or understand it. You got to kind of guess, but it's let's just put it this way: it's a great picture book. Okay. All right, that gets us to Presleyana. Presleyana, I believe, the first Presleyana was in 1977 or 78. I'm not really sure about that. May have been 76. I think I got involved with Presleyana 4. I was like the co-editor of this particular edition. We liked to put unique items or rare records on each cover because it was so appealing. Okay, so you can see there is the blue vinyl Elvis in concert on there, and some other rare records that we put on the front. And these are all high dollar ones, of course. So this was Presleyana 5. Okay, it was a regular kind of soft cover book. It was all black and white. And even though it did have some, pictures in it, okay, but the pictures were kind of limited. There weren't that many in there. They usually were pictures of, the really rare stuff, and they popped in here and there. Still, it was a nice book, very lightweight, kind of easy to carry and everything. And this one, obviously, I didn't use too much because it's still in pretty good shape. However, this one I used a lot more. So when we went to Presleyana 6, we still had everything. It was still the same kind of book. It was a soft cover. This time, Jerry wanted to go with a rare picture of Elvis standing out in front of Graceland. But this one here was pretty much like the other one, okay? Not very many pictures. There are some, but not as many as the next edition that's coming up that I'm going to show you. That is 6. Okay, now we go to 7. And I was really excited about this book. Presleyana 7, which is this one here, was the very first Presleyana that was hardcover. And it also had rare memorabilia on the front and rare memorabilia on the back. Lots of cool stuff. I mean, anything that we found that was really rare and unique or just looked great on the cover, we put on there. And, of course, this has the Aloha from Hawaii blue vinyl. I know the collector owns this right now, Rick Davis. So, Rick, if you're watching, there it is. Your record is on the cover of the book. It has the Burning Love gray label, which unfortunately I heard was bootlegged recently. And like, oh, man, I couldn't believe hearing that. And, of course, bootlegging, there's just some people out there that like to take advantage of those who don't know any better. And I don't know how they did it, but there's supposedly some out there. And then the great thing about this book, too, is like Rick Davis can be happy that his record's on the cover, but I'm happy because my poster's on the cover. This is actually my poster, which is hanging in my rec room, and it is the actual RCA record store poster. This was a poster that was sent back in 1964 to record stores, and of course I had it framed, and I have it on my wall and everything, but that's kind of like my pride and joy of my roustabout collection. This book was great because we went steps further, okay? We then started going and adding, there were like more color pictures added, okay? And then even in the middle, we went even further and added even more pictures. Jerry was always so great at doing this. And of course, the thing I liked the most about this one was for the very first time, we put every single bonus photo so that you could see it in full color. And in most cases, we showed the front and the back of the photo, especially ones that had different backs. A good amount of changes were made to this book to make it better and better as time went by, because each time we put out a book, we wanted it to be easier to use. Even though this book was really, really great, this is the one I'm the most proud of, and this is the latest book, which is, you've seen on the show many times. This is Presleyana 8. The thing about Presleyana 8 is we took the whole concept of the last book even further. Again, it is a hardcover book, the same as the other one. Again, it has, color pictures, just like the other one. And what's really cool is we added every single hype sticker that appeared on every album. Of course, we missed a few, yes, and there's always somebody out there who will get the book and go, hey, you forgot this one. Hey, you forgot that one. Okay, fine. We're only human. We missed a few. But we have got almost every single hype sticker there is listed in this book. So if you ever see a listing that says it came with a sticker, you can actually go to this section and find all of those stickers. And they're in full color. Another great feature we did was we added another category. We added the 21st century releases of the LPs, not 45s, but LPs. And that would include everything that Sony BMG released from 2000 up to present, as well as Friday Music, which also is a United States company that releases Elvis albums. We added Follow That Dream albums. So what we did was we did our research, looked up as much as we could regarding Follow That Dream releases and what they sell for, because they're all limited released, and once they're sold, they go up in value. So as far as the Presleyanas, I think this one is, the best as far as all of them are concerned. I'd like to talk a little bit about some myths and truths regarding price guides. First of all, the key word in price guide is guide. Nothing is etched in stone. I mean, when you see the prices in the book, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's exactly the price that should be paid. And 9 out of 10 times it probably isn't. One thing we did with the most recent Presleyana was we made it so that the high price that you see is for absolute solid mint condition. But it's basically just a guide, folks. I mean, you know, as a collector, you just need something to give you an idea of how rare something is. If you look in the book, you find something like Elvis's Christmas album, and it says $500, then that doesn't mean that the Christmas album is $500, that you're going to pay $500 for it. It's just saying that it's worth that much, and it may have sold for that much. Now, I can guarantee you this. I may have sold it for $500. If it was mint condition, it sold for $5. Or if somebody else sold it for $5, and I know they sold it for $5. So a lot of the prices are based on what I've seen things sell for and what other people, other dealers have sold it for. Now, we don't use eBay as a guideline. I've seen albums go for incredibly large amounts of money for simple records like sealed Pickwick albums. You know, you just don't know. I mean, you could get an item on there and there could be a bidding war. Two rich guys just battling it out trying to get the album, and the price goes up. So we don't use eBay at all in the price guides. Prices go crazy on there, and they're not very accurate at all. Condition is something that also has to be looked at when you look at a record. Let's say you get a Speedway mono. In the book, Speedway mono is, I think, valued at about $4,000. Let's say you find a Speedway mono, and let's say it's a cutout, the corner's cut out, or the cover's not in the best shape, or the record's not in the best shape, okay, and you decide you're going to put $4,000 on it, and when you sell it, you're not going to get it. Nobody's going to give you $4,000 for a beat-up Speedway album. You can't put, you know, big prices on damaged records, all right? And that's the biggest thing I have about eBay. eBay, when I go on there and I look around, you can find just about any Elvis album you want, but they're in really bad shape. And, you know, the opening bid is, you know, close to what the book says. Maybe they'll get it, maybe they won't. But most of the time on eBay, the condition is never up to par. One thing you got to look out for is when, in a description on eBay, is when they say, not bad condition for a record of its age. Now, right there, that means don't bid on that album. You don't want to go after that one because, number one, the person who's selling it obviously does not understand collecting. The record is probably not going to be in the best of shape because they're giving it credit for just being around all these years, even if it's beat up. So stay away from those kind of descriptions. You see that description, don't even bid. So basically what I'm trying to say is you got to be fair about pricing a record based on its condition. And condition is subjective. It means that your idea of mint is not necessarily the same idea of mint as mine. And because of that, that's where all the confusion and the debate comes in. One of the biggest misconceptions about the price guide is the prices. Everybody thinks that just because it's, you know, priced high or price is mentioned, that's exactly what it has to sell for. No, it's not. Okay, the price is basically set because we saw it sell for that. But we understand that you may not want to pay that for it. Okay, and that's fine. All right, I understand that. But to say that the book is overpriced just because you wouldn't pay that price is unfair to us, the authors or the people who put together these guides, because we're just doing the best we can to give you an idea of what something is worth based on our experience. One of the funniest things I heard, other people have said it to other people. I've heard it more than once, okay? And I'll read it to you here. The highest priced items in the book are items that the author has in their own collection, and the lower priced items are purposely priced low because they are still looking for them and don't want to pay a lot for them. I've heard that so many times, like, oh, well, Jerry prices things high because those are the things he owns and he wants to get he wants to get that price. The things that are lower priced are things he's still looking for, okay? I've even been accused of that from helping with the book. You know, oh, Robert does this. Robert, you know, prices things high, and the lower things are stuff that he's still looking for. Well, that's It's BS. We don't do that, all right? Maybe there are some people who've done that. I don't know, because there are different people doing price guides, and even on the internet, I don't know. But we don't do that. I know Presleyana, Jerry and I don't do that. So that's just crazy for somebody to say that. Another thing that bugs me is there are people who ignore and discredit price guides and the people who pay those kind of prices. In other words, there's people out there, Elvis collectors, who make fun of the price guide by saying, "Oh, that record's way too high. That's ridiculous. That's too much money. I'd never pay that." Yet, if they find that record for $10, then they take it and show it to you and go, "Yeah, this one's worth $3,000. Yeah, this one's a lot of money." I have nothing against anybody that collects Elvis. I think that's great. But I like to call them GS and FM collectors. GS being garage sale and FM being flea market collectors. These are people that may not have a lot of money, and I understand that, but they go to garage sales and flea markets and they look for Elvis items, and they'll pay only so much. They may not pay $20 for a record because $20 might be too much. But that's fine, and I respect that. But just also respect the fact that there are people out there who have money and will pay $4,000 for a Speedway mono, or $1,000 for an Elvis Christmas album, or whatever the rarest albums are priced at. And you don't make fun of those people. I mean, they are, they're collectors just like you. They just have more money. So you don't look in the price guide and go, "Oh, that's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous price." Or, I've heard people say, "Those people are crazy. I don't know who pays those kind of prices. Those people are nuts." Well, those people who pay those kind of prices make more money than you, and they've got more money to blow. So don't blame them. If they want to spend all that money, let them spend that money. You don't have to, but just don't pick on people that do. And then don't pick on the price guides and say, "Oh, the price guides are ridiculous." Again, it's just a guide. It's just to tell you what's rare. And I know if you find it for $10, you're going to brag about it being worth $3,000, okay? So you are giving some credit to the values in the books, like it or not. That leads me right into the interview with Jerry Osborne. This is an audio interview. It was taped over the phone. And what I did was I added some pictures and photos from the years that I've known Jerry, a lot of shots of him, shots of him with me and with Carol and with other people as well. Who knows, you might even see yourself in there if you've been to the conventions with Jerry. Okay, so we're going to go to that right now, and here's the interview with Jerry Osborne.
We are very, very fortunate to have my good friend and the author of Presleyana, Mr. Jerry Osborne, on the line here with me. And Jerry, how you doing?
Well, I'm really doing fine, Robert, and it is a pleasure to talk to you, not only because we like each other and have known each other for decades, but this time we're actually recording it, so let's have fun with it.
I have talked about you many, many times on the show, and I've also talked about Presleyana many, many times, and so I think pretty much my audience for Collecting the King knows a lot about the book and about myself, of course, because they watch the show, but maybe not as much as they should about you.
It all started the mid-'50s when I became addicted to top 40 music. Then we skip forward to 1961, where I kept thinking, lots of people know what they want to do when they get out of high school. Well, I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a DJ. I wasn't going to be a lawyer or a doctor or an Indian chief. I just wanted to play records for people. In the early 50s, I was the listener, and I knew what it meant to me to be able to listen to the radio and hear the top 40 music and hear the countdown every week from the radio stations and all the DJs that had all their own little gimmicks and so forth. It just seemed like a really cool way to spend the rest of my life. You know what? I did that, and I'm still doing it. And you and I are proving that right now. In 1961, I became a DJ while I was still a junior in high school. In 1975, I got to thinking somebody should do a book that had pictures and information for all of the Elvis recordings going back to the beginning of the first records on the Sun label. And so I started documenting all of this material, and then we got all the different formats and we put it in a book. It really wasn't a book, it was a magazine, and the title of it was The Complete Elvis. And so we really did a good job of it. I say we, it was myself and my partner, Bruce Hamilton, at the time. That laid the foundation for what we now know as Presleyana. And I may be jumping ahead of you, but I'm sure you would get to that very soon anyway. I think that's when we did the first edition of Presleyana, and now the current one is the 8th edition. That's a good summary, I think, of how it all started and how it worked its way into the book that you and I have been working on for years now.
Well, when you first did the first book, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't you have your partnership still going? Wasn't it you and somebody else that did maybe the first 2 books, or was that just you?
Well, it was Bruce Hamilton, my partner at the time. We began Jelly Roll Productions together, and we were doing other things too, but when the books came out, the first one, which was not Elvis, that we were not doing the Elvis at the very beginning. We were doing Record Price Guide or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Eventually, Rock and Record is another book, a very popular book that collectors of not just Elvis but all records in general appreciate and have in their usually in their collection. Was it Presleyana first? Was that the book that started it and then geared you into going into a book about records in general?
We had all these books that were coming and going, one right after the other. And then when we started the Presleyana, that didn't come out every year like some of these other books do, but we kind of got it, I think, on a 5-year schedule, and that seemed to work out okay.
I think we've known each other since 1987, so that goes back quite a few years. And all the time that I've either had a copy of Presleyana, I mean, I've known about Presleyana actually my whole Elvis collecting life. I never, ever asked you, as many times as we've talked together, as many times as we went out to dinner and seen each other at shows and everything, I never, ever asked you, why Presleyana? What in the world? How did you come up with the name Presleyana?
Well, I stole it, in a manner of speaking. I was a big collector of Disney material, and it was limited to some particular artists that I liked the work of. There were books that were out at that time that covered all the different Disney collectibles, and the name of that book was Disneyana. When I started thinking, well, what's a good name for the Elvis collection, and I decided, why not Presleyana? I didn't like Elvis Anna. That didn't really sound as good.
Nah, that doesn't sound as good.
It doesn't. You're right. But yeah. Presleyana has a good flow to it, and that became the name of our book only because I originally knew about Disneyana.
And speaking of Disney, didn't Disney also do the movie Pollyanna with Haley Mills?
Certainly.
So, because I remember when I first saw the name Presleyana, right away I thought of Pollyanna from, with Haley Mills, the movie.
Let's get together. Yeah.
Okay, so that's interesting. Getting back to the book, you had mentioned the thing about the 5-year pattern that what you did was when you did the first one, obviously it sold well, right? So you decided to do a second one, a third. And then how did that pattern actually begin?
Well, first of all, before that book, I had The Complete Elvis. I mentioned earlier that being a magazine publication. But the big deal was that it was picked up by Follett Publishing. That book sold over 1.5 million copies, and that is what made me think we need to build on this, not just to do a magazine again, but to do a legitimate book, and thus the first Presleyana book because of the result of the magazine.
I remember when I first met you, it was just kind of somebody pointed at at you and said, well, that's Jerry Osborne, and he does the Presleyana and the Price Guides for records. So I didn't really know who you were or anything, but I think the very first show we did, we actually were next to each other, if I'm correct. You were set up at one table, and I was set up another. And I kept remembering, the thing I remember about you the most was you hugged and kissed everybody. Everybody.
Not you.
People walked in the door, they looked across the room, and they said, oh, there's Jerry. And they would run up, and they just grabbed you, and you were hugging. I don't think it mattered if it was a guy or a girl, but you seemed to be hugging and kissing everybody that came in the door. You were pretty well known in 1987 and 88.
Well, let's see. My first book was 1975. So, yeah, I had plenty of time to build up a reputation of sorts. And I'm sure that in the room, as the people came in and out again, you'll notice that I always ask all of them for money, right?
Well, it ends up that way sometimes, doesn't it? Because they always go to your table and they see the book or they see something on there. So let's talk a little bit about me and you, okay? So, talk about, we met in 87. I think the first show I actually set up at was in 88. At some point, I recall, I think it was in the 80s when we were both doing Tom and Sally's show at the Holiday Inn during Elvis Week. And we started talking about Elvis, and you knew I was a huge Elvis fan, and I was into collecting. I knew a lot about the records and the memorabilia. And then one day you kind of came up to me and asked me if I wanted to be involved in some way. I've told that story on my show. Why don't you tell your version of that, how that all happened?
Well, I don't know that it would be exact, that's for sure. But overall, I think it was just a matter of me realizing that here was someone who knows an awful lot about the kind of stuff that we are trying to put in a book. We would sit around sometime late at night in the lobbies of these hotels and so forth and just quiz each other on certain songs. And do you remember this song from the movie? And, just all kinds of excuses to sit and talk about Elvis in every respect you could think of, I guess. And I don't remember if I came right out at that particular time and said, let's work on this book together. You probably were already giving me information. I can't say for sure, but I think that you probably were.
Well, I do remember that, too.
Yeah.
I remember whenever I went to the show, one of the first things I did when I saw you, if there was some new discovery or if there was something that was noteworthy enough to go into the book, I always told you about it. And I think I even sometimes sent you stuff. I don't know when computers came into play here and the internet, but I do remember giving you information for the book. I do remember that.
I also remember that, so we both agree. And I know that it was 5.
Yeah, I think my official title, even in the new Presleyana, is Associate Editor.
Sounds like a good one to me. Let's stay with that.
So moving forward, we did 5 and 6 kind of kept going. And I remember as, a contributor, I wanted to do everything I could to make the book easier to read, easier to adapt to everything that was happening because, eBay had a tremendous effect on the book, if you recall. And it was one of the number one things that we had to deal with, the fact that sometimes things went for outrageous amounts of money on eBay, and then sometimes they didn't. The really rare stuff went for nothing. So we'd always get somebody that would say, well, the prices are too high, or they're too low, or they're not accurate, because after a while they started using eBay as a guideline. You remember that?
I certainly do. And all you could do was just scratch your head and say, I don't get it.
Right. And it made sense, too, because, when you have an auction situation, we have a price guide where we're just trying to take a look at what these things sold for. Wasn't that your original idea when it came to pricing? Because you were getting a lot of information from Elvis collectors throughout the years, not just me, but hundreds of collectors who followed the book. They would contact you and give you updates. So isn't that how you kind of worked on the prices and everything before I even got involved?
Absolutely. And if you have a source of information, accurate or not, you got to look into it, and maybe half the time it's right, maybe half the time it isn't, but at least what you do get out of it is valuable.
How do you think eBay affected the book? Because it was a big thing. It really was.
Every book that I have done along the way has had input that was very helpful, very accurate, and other input that maybe wasn't all that accurate, but still, in someone's mind, it might have been important.
Well, if we look at the book as it is right now, which is Presleyana 8, this is one heck of a book. I mean, it's got so much information in it. I think the information alone is the main reason to have this book, no matter what you think of the prices. And, of course, it's hard because of eBay and other Internet auctions that it's hard to be able to say, well, this is definitively the price that should be paid for this, or this is definitely what this is worth. Those days are pretty much gone. But just the information alone, phenomenal.
I'm thinking back to when everything was black and white, and now you look in Presleyana 8, and there's so many beautiful collectibles and records and all kinds of great stuff, and it's just one page after another. But there's so much color and beautiful ways to look at some of these items that people had never seen before. Not everybody has these in their collection, So a lot of people are looking at items that they may never own, but now they can see what they look like.
Because of the 5-year tradition of a new book coming out every 5 years, it usually happens on the anniversary of Elvis's death. So, we're coming up on the 45th anniversary. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. What are your present thoughts on that as far as when the next book will come out?
I don't have any specifics on that, Robert. We are going to be doing something, that I can be certain of, but I don't know when, and it could tie in with something such as a 45th or 50th or whatever anniversary. All I can say is we're working on it every time we find out about something. But I'm filing away all of that, and I know that you are too. So we're going to have some stuff for a future book, and we're going to be raving about it again and saying, look at all this new stuff and whatever that might be. So we get a real bang out of putting these together, but I can't say right now exactly what the timetable would be. However, stay tuned, keep in touch with Robert, keep in touch with Osborne Enterprises, and we'll stay on top of it.
If there's anybody out there, not ordering the book, Presleyana 8, because they're waiting for a new book to come out, I would say don't wait. I would say order Presleyana 8. It's, the most accurate book or price guide there is for Elvis, the most informative books on Elvis Presley and his memorabilia. Why wait?
Well said. Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. And I have been mentioning on the show that we were going to do this for quite some time.
Absolutely. I appreciate your time and all that you have done and everything that you will do. Before we sign off, tell Carol I said hello.
Carol, Jerry says hello. And she yells, hi, Jerry, from the other room.
Sweet conversation.
So I want to thank everybody for watching the show today. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Jerry. And, if you have comments or anything that you want to get to us, don't forget you can contact me at collectingtheking@gmail.com. And you can send me inquiries or, your want lists and things like that. I always like hearing from everybody. If you have any comments on the show, you can put them below or, again, send them directly to me. I really enjoy this more and more because some of the comments I've been getting, I almost feel like I'm getting a relationship with some of you guys, and that's the fun part about this because one of the things about doing the shows in Memphis was the camaraderie that I always had with Elvis fans, and now I can have it this way and from the comfort of my own home, and that's really cool. In particular, I wanted to comment about my last show, Elvis on Cassette. There's a guy named Jules who I believe he said that I was responsible for his obsession now with collecting Elvis cassettes. He even ended up beating me on eBay for an Elvis cassette, which was an Aloha from Hawaii in a cardboard box. And, it's just fun. I just got an email from Romania, from Germany. It's wonderful. So I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you keep watching the show. If you're getting slow responses from me, it's because I'm a very busy guy, all right? I'm working on another film, not my film, but somebody else's film right now. So that's taken up a lot of my time. I also am planning on doing another show in Memphis, although it won't be a Collecting the King show. I will actually be setting up with somebody else. So we're kind of looking into that right now. So I'm getting all my inventory and stuff like that ready and prepared for that. And then finally, I just wanted to say, because of that, my wife Carol is going to be kind of in charge of getting in touch with you guys. So don't be surprised if you get an email from her. It doesn't mean that you can't still email me. You can still get in touch with me that way. So, folks, that's it for this show. Thank you again for watching. I'm Robert Alaniz, and I am out of here. Oh, and don't forget, subscribe to the channel. Thank you.